but it's the toxic men for me. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Zeleny. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. So Love is Blind Season 3 is shaping up to be an exciting season, way more exciting than I expected, so I decided to make a video talking about episodes 5 through 7 because these men got toxic real quick. It was looking so good in the first 4 episodes, and now it looks like most of these couples are doomed. Bartise is public enemy number 1. Cole is public enemy number 2. I feel like Cole is worse. I don't even know who's worse. I say it every time, but this is my disclaimer. This is a reality show. Even though we have a lot of people acting out in these episodes, when I judge or critique each person, I'm not referring to the person they are off camera. I'm referring just to what we've seen on the show so far. So this next batch of episodes consists of 3 episodes, and it shows the end of the honeymoons that we saw last week, but also follows the couples jumping back into the real world and moving in together and meeting each other's families. I didn't remember in the first batch of episodes that they're actually all from Dallas, Texas. Every season of Love is Blind takes couples from a different city. Season 1 was Atlanta, season 2 was Chicago, and now it's Texas' turn, which I live in Texas myself. I live in Austin. I'm kind of glad it's in Dallas because, as you know, Netflix has promoted Austin in a lot of their videos a little too much. So I'm happy to let Dallas have some of the spotlight. Oh, and by the way, I've been following the Love is Blind official Instagram, and before these 3 episodes dropped, they did a poll about who the fans think is gonna make it to the altar and say yes. So for every couple, I want to discuss the final results of that poll from the fans and my thoughts on it if it aligns with my opinions. From my last video to this video, my predictions have changed a lot already for the couples. I mean, a lot has gone on. Starting with Nancy and Bartise, 18% of the fandom said they would make it to the altar and say yes. 82% said no. I'm surprised at this. I actually had high hopes for them in the beginning because they seemed very compatible and very into each other at first. Obviously, I agree with this poll now because they've had a lot of issues in episodes 5 through 7. And oh my god, Bartise has had quite the nosedive in public perception since the first few episodes. It was all kind of over once he met Raven, and the subreddit hates Bartise so much they will give him any mean nickname they can think of. And it's so funny how as a collective the subreddit has really committed to this bit of changing Bartise's name. Here's one post that says, "Raven shutting down Burt's Bees at the pool." Didn't need bariatrics views on abortion. I would love to hear how botulism would feel about his wife gaining weight. And the fact that Baguette was trying to tell her what to do with her body, like what? I feel so bad for Nancy. Babadook is awful. This comment was all about Matt and Colleen, but at the end it says, he gets triggered by Colleen being out at the clubs and needs a barista to talk him down. The Love is Blind fandom makes it twice the fun. I recommend the subreddit if you are interested in even more camaraderie around the show. Towards the end of the honeymoon, we have this pool party. I kind of feel like the Cole and Colleen incident overshadowed the Bartise and Raven pool party incident, and they kind of had a similar interaction of Cole and Colleen, but Bartise was not as lucky as Cole was in the situation. Well, unlucky or lucky, depends how you look at it. Bartise tried to compliment Raven at the pool. He tells her he was so impressed by her looks, like, good job, and she's like, yeah, I work out. And he even mentions how him and Nancy have best friend vibes, which I already feel is reducing Nancy to that purely emotional connection with the physical part fizzing out. But Raven, like a queen, she shuts Bartise down real quick. He was out of line complimenting her the way he was, and I just loved when she said she doesn't care about him complimenting her because he had no compliments for Pod Raven, and only when he saw her was he complimenting her and impressed. And she saw right through that. She shut him down, said her and SK are more emotionally compatible. Her relationship has its own issues, in my opinion, but at least she acted really loyal to SK, didn't return a bunch of compliments to Bartise. And I love the idea of Bartise not getting that ego boost that I think he expected from Raven, because he was like complimenting her physique and probably expecting her to be like, yeah, you're hot too, but not Raven, no ma'am. As much as Raven is kind of like a bit of a diva, this was one of the moments where her diva behavior made a lot of sense, and I was rooting for her, and a lot of the fandom mentioned that like maybe they didn't love Raven a lot of the time, but in this moment, she was mother for that. And then again, after the pool party, Bartise starts talking to Nancy about how hot Raven is. Bartise is a lot more hesitant and scared of what the real world's gonna look like for them. He even asked Nancy, like, if we were getting married right now, what would you say? And she's like, yes. And it's kind of in a challenging way. I saw a lot of debate about this on the subreddit, if Nancy was earnestly being like, yes, I'd marry you right now, or if she was like testing him in that moment. You could tell he was caught off guard and was like, oh, I expected her to say, I don't know, in this moment, because he's more confused. But no, Nancy is all in, and it's already feeling imbalanced, and they're not even out of the honeymoon yet. Once they move in together, Bartise is still fairly affectionate, like they kiss and stuff on camera. Also, we find out that Nancy is some sort of land baron and has like a bunch of properties that she bought with her own money, and she has no debt. She's basically very financially well off at this point, it seems like. I don't remember how many properties she had, but it was a good amount. And the property she takes Bartise to, and we see a tour of, she says would rent for $6,000 to $9,000 a month. It does come out in this conversation that her ex co-owns the home with her, and they co-own 2 different properties together. Bartise kind of acts concerned about this. I don't necessarily believe him. I believe that someone that was fully in love with Nancy and about to marry her would be concerned that an ex is involved like this. I just think at this point, Bartise is already a little distant and checked out from the relationship, where I felt like he was playing up that concern for the cameras, that he's like concerned about the ex, or he's like playing that up to have an excuse to hide his superficial reasons behind. So that's just kind of theory and speculation. It's not something that was stated outright. However, Bartise did change his tone real quick when Nancy said that when they got married, she sees her money as his money, and that he would be getting a chunk of the profits of her real estate empire that she seems to have somehow. When she told Bartise all the money she has, and that when they get married, her money is our money now, Bartise was kind of like, oh, interesting. I felt like in his eyes you could see the switch of like, oh shit, that's a lot of money. And actually, am I fumbling the bag if I don't marry this lady? Because he is significantly younger than her too, so he clearly does not have a lot of money. He is trying to say that in the most cool way he can, but you can't hide the fact that you're 26 and just starting a career. So for Bartise, meeting Nancy's family is a little bit rocky. I was living for Nancy's family and how a little unhinged they were, but in a funny way. I'm also Mexican, so I understand this whole energy very well. Like, it felt very familiar to me. But when Bartise met Nancy's brothers, it was just so funny how the brothers grilled him. The brothers were like, to his face, I feel like kind of iffy about you. I feel like most of the time with the families, we see the family members start out like grilling them, and then eventually they soften up and are like, oh, you're a good person. But the brothers never soften up, and we're just like, you're kind of wishy-washy and we're not convinced about you. And this conversation was where we had the 400-pound question, which the answer to that question was why the brothers were feeling so iffy about him. So one of them asked him, would you still love Nancy if she was 400 pounds? And Bartise was basically like, no. He didn't say that, but he said that. He was like, I wouldn't let it get to that. I would think we're at a point in our relationship where I can tell her, like, let's go on a diet. But I don't think the point of that question is to literally think about that scenario. It's just like that meme on Twitter about the girlfriend always asking the boyfriend if he would still love her if she was a worm. No girl is actually turning into a worm, but it's just a metaphor for through thick and thin, I will love you no matter what. It was just awkward the way he answered that to the brothers. He didn't read the room very well, but I mean, I guess he was honest, and that's the merit, but the brothers were able to see the red flags and call them out. I liked also when one of the brothers told him, what you're saying about Nancy is very generic. It's very bland. And then with the mom, it was just funny because the mom was just very like intimidating. It was just weird. I thought she was just gonna be a chill lady, and then she said, I'm a bail bond person and I'm reading you right now and you're lying. And I just lived for that because it was funny and messy and dramatic. I don't think it takes a bail bond person to see that Bartise is inflating his status and career. It's kind of clear from a mile away that he's kind of puffing out his chest. I mean, he is trying to seem like a good match for Nancy, but he's not going to hide the fact that he's 26 and probably hasn't had a bunch of time to accumulate a bunch of wealth to support Nancy. So he's trying to dodge those questions the best he can, and then the mom is obviously like seeing right through it and calling him out like, you're lying. Another major moment for Nancy and Bartise was the abortion discussion. They were discussing how they would have kids and timeline and things. Firstly, Nancy was like, I need to think carefully about timelines because the older I get, the higher risk pregnancy. Bartise was literally like, I never heard of that being a thing because men, of course. But then Nancy asks about what if you know that your child is going to have a birth defect? Would Bartise be okay with an abortion in that case? Because she believes she would be. And Bartise is like, I can't imagine that. I don't approve of that. And he feels kind of like anti-abortion in general. He's so wishy-washy about it because he's like, well, if you're young and it's an accident, then you get one free pass for an abortion, but no more than that. And then Nancy brings up, what if it's sabotage, what if it's rape, and these difficult type of situations, and Bartise is like, well, that's different, then I approve of abortion. Nancy's side is that she's seen a lot in her field of people with very severe disabilities and how difficult that can be on the child and the family. In that case, she would consider an abortion. I don't have much opinion on this because I'm very pro-choice and I don't want children, so I'm very comfortable with the idea of abortion. I didn't know how people would feel about Nancy's stance because it can be a very controversial one. I really don't know, but I believe in Nancy's choice, so whatever Nancy's choice for her own body, it was good for her. But I did see a really great Reddit thread about someone with a disability who was talking about it, and there was a lot of interesting takes in the comments from people who have disabilities or are close with people. It was just interesting to see everyone's experiences. I'll link that thread below because it was really good to see different opinions on it. But this discussion carried over into when Nancy met Bartise's family. Bartise's sister got really offended by Nancy's opinion about this, and she started crying. She got very emotional. None of the family understood. I mean, the mom did try to understand Nancy's side, but they were all very shocked and disagreeing. Like, the sister was like, kids are such a blessings. So I'm imagining maybe that their family is Christian or something because they really had a averse reaction to the idea of abortion. At this point, Nancy's family doesn't approve of Bartise. Bartise's family doesn't approve of Nancy. That is obviously not great. So beyond this point, Bartise and Nancy are really having problems having physical connection. Nancy asks for a hug and Bartise tells her she's too needy as a joke, but still, he's just not being so physically affectionate the way he was. It has like almost totally fizzled out. Nancy is so emotional. I feel so bad for her because this guy is obnoxious and Nancy's over here devastated by it because she's still just as much in love as day one and he has totally been distant. At the end of episode 7 is where we have another group hang with the other couples. They really upped the amount of couple mingling parties this season, I feel like. And that is very strategic, and I thank the producers for that because it's making the season really drama heavy. So Nancy and Bartise go to the group dinner, and the rest of the rest of the pod squad shows up to the group dinner, and that includes Andrew, our good friend from the thumbnail last video. Andrew was a lot more fun in this episode because he had like a really good attitude. The way he says, "I love you, goddammit," to Nancy, and it's in the sarcastic tone that the aspect I do like about Andrew is that he pokes fun at the TV show's spectacle that they're on, kind of similar to how Shake did last season. In the reunion, he did call out the cast for being so fake and ridiculous and like overproducing themselves so much. A broken clock is right twice a day, and that was Shake's moment. But Andrew reminds me of that attitude towards the show and the producing and the drama. I don't know, I liked Andrew a lot more in this episode. Nancy ends up opening up to him and being really honest about Bartise being distant, and Andrew listens very intently in a very sweet way, in a very just friend way. And as she's breaking down, Nancy's like, it's fine. And Andrew says, it's not fine, but it'll be okay. I love that line so much. I hate that some rando guy on a reality show said it, but I think it's a line I'm gonna like take with me as someone with high anxiety and apply it to my own life, because that's a really good mantra for anxiety, honestly. And it was like the perfect thing to say, because it's true. What do you say to someone where they're like, it's fine, and they're breaking down, clearly not fine? That's just like a perfect phrase. Bartise ends up interrupting Andrew and Nancy and trying to be playful, and I think he was also trying to ham it up for the cameras that he's jealous. It's like, is there something I should be worried about here? Again, I don't believe Bartise is acting. Maybe it's just me. It just seemed like he knew that for the cameras he had to pretend to be jealous in this case. But if he's being very physically distant from Nancy, I don't think there's a lot of jealous passion that's gonna come out of him randomly. After the dinner, Bartise and Nancy still discuss the Andrew thing. He's still trying to be jealous and pretend that he cares about Andrew and Nancy rekindling something when there's clearly nothing there. And Bartise is honest yet again, and he's like, looks do matter. And Nancy's just like, I wish you loved me for me the way I love you for you, instead of wishing I was someone else. But if looks matter so much to Bartise, like, why did you go on Love is Blind? The only dating show about not seeing the person you're gonna date. You can go on Too Hot to Handle. You can go on The Bachelorette. You can go on Love Island. There's a lot of dating shows out there that are all about looks, and Bartise could fit right in with his little muscles. So as they're having a deep talk, they get interrupted by Matt having a mental breakdown down the hall. So we'll get to that in Matt's section. So let's move on to Zanab and Cole. 24% of the fandom said yes, they would make it down the aisle. Over 3/4 of the fandom does not think Zanab and Cole are gonna work out. And I agree, I voted no, they will not work out. Zanab and Cole have a kind of similar story to Nancy and Bartise, because Cole, since the pool party or since seeing Colleen, he is having no physical connection with Zanab. When Zanab asks him if he had second thoughts about choosing her, he hesitates for a long time. Basically, it's a no comment until he answers it the way she wants. But he also says that Zanab is physically different from every girl he's ever dated. The fandom just very much thinks that Cole is mostly solely attracted to white women. So at the pool party, Cole and Zanab don't seem like that great of a match. She doesn't want to go be goofy in the water with him. After the first time they had to be in a pool together and Cole was acting like a toddler, splashing her all over the place, I don't blame her for not going in. And also, Cole is going around telling anyone who will listen, Alexa in this case, that he isn't head over heels for Zanab. Alexa's even shocked that she didn't even have to press for the tea to get all of the tea from Cole, that he's struggling with being attracted to Zanab. And then we have the incident that became this whole thing that did not have to become a whole thing, and that is where Cole approached Colleen at the pool party and told her that she's his type, that she's cute to her face. He told her that in real life he would come up to her at a bar, and she agreed that if they met in the real world, she would approach him at a bar. It felt like Colleen was reciprocating only because she was very flattered by Cole. She seems like a girl that really likes validation in that way and compliments. I don't think any part of her is trying to make a move for Cole or hit on him. I think it was more like, thanks so much, I'm so flattered. Cole was the one out of line telling Colleen she's exactly his type, and he tells the camera like, oh, she's stressful for me. And it's so tough to be physically attracted to Zanab, which is, it's just so annoying. I mean, is Zanab the deep D of the season? After the pool party, we have the 9 out of 10 conversation. So Zanab asked Cole to rate her, and he gives her a 9 out of 10 and then proceeds to say Colleen and Raven are a 10 out of 10. What in the stupidity of man? Like, how do you say this to the person you're engaged to? Like, what an idiot. And he has this whole conversation about, like, if he told her she was a 10 out of 10, it would be bullshit. He only gives out 7 out of 10 or less. So she should be grateful to get a 9 out of 10. He says Colleen is attractive, but tries to then deflect and say, everyone's hot in this cast. Brennon's hot. Like, okay. And he says if he were to rate Zanab 10 out of 10, it would be bullshit and she would know it's bullshit. And she's like, yeah, now I would know it's bullshit because you've told me now. But he's like, unless a guy's with Kim Kardashian, which you kind of look like. Gotta help this man. Fuck this. These women just deserve so much better. I'm ready. You know what I'm ready for? All lesbian Love is Blind season. Like, the world would heal if we got that Love is Blind season. In the real world, the challenges that Zanab and Cole face are firstly around Cole being so dirty. When they go to Cole's apartment, it is disgusting. Zanab said it didn't smell, but I do not believe it for 1 second that that place did not stink. Like, it looked so nasty. The toilet had flies living in it or something. Like, that's nasty. Zanab just deserves such like a classy gentleman, and Cole is just such a boy. Their real biggest issue, aside from his messiness, is that Cole's family does not approve of this engagement at all. They are super Christian, and they are also not approving of Zanab and Cole living together. And Cole tells these things to Zanab's stepmom. As we recall, Zanab lost both of her parents as a teenager, and she luckily has this stepmom who raised her, and it made me think so much of, is it a meme or is it a t-shirt or whatever? She was not her stepmom, but the mom who stepped up. That's Beverly right there. She tries to get across Zanab's perspective that Zanab is looking for a husband whose parents can step in and fill in a little bit as her parents in that void that she has. And Cole is very like, I never thought of it that way. Empathy, never heard of it. I'm being shady, but Cole, I was glad to finally see Cole and Zanab have some compatibility. I had even forgotten by this point that their whole thing was that they loved Jesus. Like, that was why they even got engaged. So that came out a little more when they met the family. Later on, Cole was talking about his family and how sad he is that they disapprove. And he's like, I thought being Christian was all about loving everybody. Cole, you've been religious for how long, and you're just realizing that religious people are entitled a lot of the time. Most people that have problems with religion, that's kind of why we have problems with religion. Zanab and Cole were kind of doing well after all this family stuff. They seem to have bonded a bit, but at the group dinner, Zanab gets riled up again by Matt because they talk about the pool party incident, and Zanab and Cole are just at it all night. Clearly there's a lot of alcohol at these parties. They made more parties. They added more alcohol this season because they're all tipsy. So just very toxic fighting. I don't think Zanab and Cole are gonna make it. I think Cole is already hated by the fandom at this point. He's not being blatant like Shake was about Deep D, but it feels like underlying there's a lot of similar sentiments where he's just not attracted to Zanab. So let's talk about Colleen and Matt, getting our last toxic man out of the way. 51% of the fandom said they think yes, they'll make it to the altar, and 49% said no. So before these episodes, the fandom was evenly split, and I kind of agree. I was kind of thinking they could go either way. At this point, I'm thinking more no, because Matt keeps threatening to quit. They seem so happy, and then after the pool party Cole incident, Colleen tells Matt about it, and Matt starts getting riled up. He doesn't even hear the full story, and he thinks that Colleen said to Cole that in the real world, whatever happens, happens. Like implying that when they get to the real world, Colleen and Cole might have a chance together or something. And Matt just like kind of runs with this narrative that didn't even happen and Colleen didn't say it happened. And then Matt literally blows up and is pissed and is like, I'm leaving. He starts packing, going irate, and Colleen is trying to, she's very submissive, trying to please him as much as possible, and she says she's willing to do anything for him to stop, which I feel so bad for her. Like, this is not a healthy dynamic to have. And Matt is trying to leave. He's asking the cameraman for his opinion about what would he do in the situation. And there's just so many red flags here. And I've seen a lot of debate about Matt on the subreddit, actually. I think that most people see the red flags and think he's toxic, but there's still a fair amount of people that defend him and think he should be mad at Colleen for what she did. I definitely think there's a lot of red flags here, and I think it would be okay for Matt to be upset about what Colleen said, especially because Matt, we know he has that trauma from his past, that he was cheated on by his former wife. Like, I understand that he has like a wound there about cheating. I just don't think the way he went about being very upset was healthy and does feel very scary to me. The way he would threaten to leave so immediately and pack his bags and start packing is a manipulation tactic. Also, just like the raising his voice, the moving fast, like I would be scared of things getting physical a little bit. I mean, we didn't see any of that happen, but I would be scared of him, just like how angry he was and yelling. The biggest red flag of it all is that he didn't listen to Colleen's side of the story. Like, he wasn't mad about what happened. He was mad about his idea of what happened. Also, the morning after, we don't see them make up, but we see them on like a vlog say, oh, in the morning we cleared it up and we're all good now. It was just so fast how Matt switched from normal to angry. It was just like, oh, we got over that fight. He also keeps saying like, oh, it's good we had a fight because we get to see how we are in a fight and not just how we are when everything's good. And I'm just like, yeah, but how you are in a fight is not good. So maybe this fight should tell you you shouldn't be together if you're gonna be this controlling. Matt even tells the Lachey's like, oh yeah, we had a fight last night. And to me, Colleen looked low-key scared. Hashtag save Colleen. Like, I want her out of there. I know he didn't hurt her, but there's just a lot of manipulation tactics and red flags. We actually don't see much of them in the real world. We don't see them move into their new apartment, really. We don't see them go to each other's apartments. Matt and Colleen have like taken a little bit of a backseat as another filler couple. We do see Colleen meet Matt's mom, who, sorry to this lady, she very much has the Karen haircut. I like that she asked Colleen if she was putting it all on for the cameras, because I always love when they reference the cameras in Love is Blind, just because they don't like to. The few times we get, I'm like, ooh, breaking the fourth wall, I see. So at the group dinner, Matt also gets riled up when talking to Zanab. So eventually Matt confronts Cole, finally, who was actually the perpetrator of the pool incident. Cole explains the whole situation the exact same way Colleen did, and Matt hears all of it rationally and is like, that's it? Okay. And he's just completely disarmed about the whole thing. I view it as sexist behavior of Matt getting the situation explained by a man who he respects and fully listening to everything Cole said, instead of with Colleen, where he heard the very beginning and then tuned her out and got mad. And he even admits to Cole that he didn't listen to what Colleen said and just got mad. We ended on his cliffhanger, actually, as much of a filler couple that they are. After the group dinner, Colleen decides to sneak away to the club. And Matt is not having it. He is having a mental breakdown. He calls Bartise and Nancy, and Bartise runs to Matt to talk him down because Matt only respects men explaining things to him. Bartise is like, calm down, man. You don't have to pack up and go. And Bartise uses it as a moment to also say how jealous he is that him and Colleen have good chemistry and him and Nancy have no chemistry now. Bartise is like, I'm so jealous of what y'all even have. And Matt's like, I get it, but how dare she go to the club? And again, I agree that Matt has a right to be upset. Colleen had said she was coming home, and then she went out to the club. But Matt's reaction to the crime is not appropriate, not healthy. He's been burned before, yes, but he cannot just threaten to leave at any argument. It doesn't lead to a stable relationship, which I assume is what Colleen and both of them want. So Matt is packing his bags, Bartise is trying to talk him down, and we will see this upcoming week if he leaves or not at this point. So next we have Alexa and Brennon, our unproblematic faves. 74% of fans said yes, that they would make it to the altar. They're the only ones with an overwhelming majority of fans thinking they will make it, which makes me hopeful for them now. And from my previous video, I am more convinced on these two. Their compatibility disparity seems more like an opposites attract thing rather than something that's pushing them apart like other couples. Like, they are very different. Alexa mentions at the beginning that she doesn't repeat outfits, so she's our unsustainable queen. Kate Saunders would approve of her, that she's not an outfit repeater, but Brennon is fine with it. He's pretty much chill with anything. This guy knows his stuff, and I think it's because he's older too. He like knows what to say. Like when Alexa asks him what's his biggest turn on, he's just like, you. And Alexa presses him for a real answer, and he's just like, you. Doesn't matter. You. There are filler couples, so we don't see too much of them these episodes. We do see there's a bit of a wealth disparity between them, but not too bad because Brennon does work as an engineer, so he's fine. He just doesn't come from money, while Alexa comes from hella money. When they went to meet her family, her dad had like a whole trophy wife girl who looked like an Instagram model. Brennon takes it like a champ, even though her family's pretty intimidating. They're just very solid, a very wholesome couple. There's one point where Alexa asks him to sign a prenup for their marriage, and they play this dramatic tension music, like, what's Brennon gonna say? And it's a long pause, and then he's like, okay, cool. And she's like, cool. Also, she's very open about their sex life when they do the group stuff at the pool party. And then at the group dinner, she talks about how she wanted very rough sex and aggressive sex. And she got it, and she's very happy with their sex life now. So I am happy with my choice to stan Alexa in my first video. I love her, her confidence. She keeps it real too, like when she's with the other girls. She's just so real and chill and honest, and her voice reminds me of Khloe Kardashian. But back in the day when she was like more cool. And I really hope they make it just for their sake. Like, I want them both to be happy, and if they continue along the path they are, then I really hope they say yes and get married, because I would love for them to be another like Lauren and Cameron for the fandom. And finally, our last couple is Raven and SK, and 18% of the fandom said yes, they'll make it to the altar. And this is wild because it's the exact same percentages as Nancy and Bartise. So that was kind of weird to me because Nancy and Bartise seem to have at least a better connection than Raven and SK, but they're kind of equal in the fandom's eyes. Maybe after these episodes, not so much. But again, I don't think Raven and SK are gonna make it. Even though they did grow together these episodes, it wasn't as awkward between them. There's still a lot of core issues that clearly are not leading to a good marriage. So I think I already talked enough about this, but I'm living for Raven shutting down Bartise. She responded to the situation in the most appropriate way, also respectful to SK because she did not return compliments at Bartise. She wasn't even flattered by it because she knows his compliments are very superficial, and she appreciates that SK likes her for her mind. Also, living for when she said she doesn't remember Matt, doesn't know who he is, forgot he was part of this. Raven is my favorite diva. As much as people hate on people that have colder personalities, sometimes you need that sass to make it interesting. Towards the end of the honeymoon, Raven and SK do start getting a little more physical, affectionate, not sex, I guess. At some point, Raven says that they're waiting to have sex until marriage, or she's making them wait, but they might mess up. I do think Raven abstaining from sex is just a hint that she's gonna say no at the altar. But the first night they move in together, Raven the next morning is complaining about everything. She's mad at the new noises. She's mad at late night calls from Nigeria. She's mad at the coffee machine. She also meets SK's family, and his mom was so sweet, like the sweetest lady. I love how she just supported their engagement and was very kind about it, despite it being a more unconventional engagement. At this point, Raven admits that her family is not coming to the wedding, and they also don't approve of this engagement, which again to me is a hint that she's not intending to say yes at the altar. My theory is that she went on the show to promote her Pilates training empire, because fitness instructors can make a pretty good living off being an online fitness instructor. So that's becoming more and more my theory as time goes on. Raven visits SK's apartment, and she's pretty shady about how it's decorated. Mostly she's condescending about his love of velvet, which his decor was funny because it was kind of like a male version of like live, laugh, love. He had a lot of quote signs around, like, my brain has too many tabs open. I do think when you're of a different culture, like not originally from the US, that kind of decor isn't cringy. Like it loses that stigma that someone like SK probably not aware of that stereotype. But they finally discuss how SK has to go to school soon to Berkeley, and SK says he did get a full ride scholarship, but he has to reduce his living expenses to live like a student. And Raven is like, I am not sacrificing my luxurious lifestyle for that, and I'm not moving either. She's not down to reduce the amount of services she gets, nails, hair, trips, Whole Foods, boob job, BBL. Just kidding. Maybe, I don't know. And then she has the audacity to tell him that he should pay rent in Dallas while he's at Berkeley. What? California's already so expensive, and there's no reason for him to be paying rent in Dallas too. I mean, I don't think they're gonna get married, so I don't think he'll have to worry about it, but SK's just being very fair, and he's one of the nice guys this season along with Brennon. SK has been so sweet and so compromising, and I did see a tweet on my timeline that was someone that knew him in like his master's program. They confirmed that he was a very nice guy that stayed out of anyone's business, kept to himself, and was very kind. Take a random tweet from a stranger with a grain of salt, but so far SK has been one of the more quality gentlemen of the season. SK does meet Raven's friends, and I've seen a lot of hate for Raven's friends among the fandom. They tell him to his face that they expected Raven to be with someone that was taller and more fit or more muscly. Raven also kind of implies that the white side of her family is pretty conservative, but that they've talked about that. But the friends end up not approving of SK. They don't approve that he's going to school. They were just not that nice to him, but it checks out. They're friends with Raven, who is kind of like a bit of a mean girl from what we've seen. It seems like she has a little bit of mean girl tendencies. And I do think they're pretty doomed. And that's all our couples. I did see this preview clip when I clicked on Love is Blind on Netflix as I was doing my research and rewatching and stuff, taking notes. I saw this preview for the next episode. Zanab tells the girls about Cole's family. And from this clip, it sounds like Cole's parents don't want to meet Zanab because she's not the type of girl they expected Cole to be with, which is a lot to unpack. She does talk about how they are comfortable with following her on Instagram, and that's it. She's telling this to the rest of the girls, and the girls are not having it, especially Raven and Alexa. Raven and Alexa, as much as Raven has her own issues, they are bad bitches, and they are quick to be shocked and appalled by this comment and not having it. To me, this kind of confirms the suspicion that perhaps Cole's parents are racist towards Zainab. We'll see if that's the case, but I didn't see this preview circulating anywhere, and I just wanted to mention it. So it's looking more like there's issues there. So yeah, those were episodes 5 through 7. Let me know your thoughts on these episodes in the comments below. Do you think anyone's gonna make it? Alexa and Brennon maybe? Anyone else? I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos once or twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!